Hey everyone, Carl here with Literate Lessons, and we're back with another deep dive. Today, we're going to be talking about why Intimidate is terrible, awful, not good at all. Intimidate, I feel like, was on top of the world for the last few formats, especially in Sword and Shield, thanks to Incineroar, and everyone kind of expected it to be really, really powerful still going into Scarlet and Violet, and that just simply is not the case right now. And we're going to go over some of the reasons why Intimidate's just not that great right now, and go over some ways you can use these common intimidators in different fashions. But before we get into all that, make sure to do all that fun YouTube stuff for us. Like, comment, subscribe, all that great stuff. It helps us out a lot. Make sure to come join the Discord if you're looking for friendly best of threes. We do our weekly dojos, and we also are getting our Literate Lessons circuit started back up. All event details and stuff like that will be shared through the Discord, so if you're interested in that, click the link down below. So why is Intimidate just god-awful terrible? Why is it so bad that no one is playing these Pokemon anymore? For those that may not know, Intimidate used to be one of the strongest things you could have on your team, and now it's hardly seen at all. Partly due to the fact that we don't have the best Intimidator in the game, Incineroar. I think a lot of it is hidden behind what Pokemon has done over the past couple of years. If you look at it, like these Intimidators, what they normally do is they are fairly bulky or fairly fast. They usually carry other things like Snarl, like in the case of Arcanine, we're gonna have Snarl and Willow, and other like interaction to essentially just be a very strong damage reduction option for teams. Gyarados would kind of fill in as a bulky kind of damage dealing role, and Salamence was a little bit faster. You could do like bulldoze things with it. Sometimes you would run special. New to this generation, we get Tailwind back, so that was an option for Salamence in this generation. But we don't see Salamence doing Tailwind. We don't see Gyarados clicking damaging moves. We don't see Arcanine doing Snarl Will-O-Wisp stuff as much anymore. And it all goes back to probably the start of Gen 8, where they started tweaking with abilities, making things immune to Intimidate. If you think about like Inner Focus or Oblivious, or things like Dondozo has Oblivious, it just doesn't care. You have things like with Scrappy. I know Flamigo has Scrappy, that's immune to Intimidate. Back in Sword and Shield, you had Surfetch, who is immune to Intimidate. And these things that are immune to Intimidate are still good. Inner Focus, not only like being immune to flinch means you can't be intimidated, you get both benefits there most of the time. Another issue that Scarlet and Violet has is it's very special attacker heavy. This is usually a common occurrence when Intimidate is very, very popular. Special attackers become popular. Well, Scarlet and Violet started out as a very special heavy format, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. Goldango is still really, really good, even though it's starting to drop off and everybody's figuring out how to play against it. It's still a really good Pokemon. Good as Gold is still a really good ability. Make It Rain is still a really good attack. The teams that it's going to be on are kind of changing, but that's a whole different thing. But how special heavy this format is really influences like the usability of Pokemon with Intimidate. The only Pokemon here that's good into special attackers is probably Arcanine, because it has access to Snarl, which there are much better Pokemon to be doing that job with. If you're bringing your Intimidate Pokemon because it has Snarl into a special attacker fight, that's not usually the best thing you want to be doing. And so we start to see things like Snarl Hydreigon, who can play Snarl, but also deal actual damage because it just gets to build damage to begin with. We see things like Will-O-Wisp on Armarouge or Gallade, both able to deal damage, but also have that capability of being a support. That's kind of another big thing, is just like, you need all 6 of your Pokemon to deal damage. There's not really a line where you can just say, I'm going to play all support moves on this Pokemon. That's kind of not the format we're in anymore. Scarlet and Violet it takes a lot of what people learned in Dynamax formats and kind of pushes it to the wayside because it's a whole new game. Terra is a lot different than Dynamax. It really affects how people play, and there's a lot of people who have that, still have that Dynamax mindset of, I gotta have my Pokemon do this stuff. Well, there's other Pokemon that get that stuff but can also still deal damage. If special attackers and inner focus and things like that weren't enough, the Pokemon Company also gave us Clear Amulet, which I think is the nail in the coffin. Clear Amulet, for those that don't know what it does, it essentially provides Clear Body to your Pokemon. What Clear Body does is it prevents the lowering of stats to this Pokemon from other Pokemon. So things like Bulldoze, things like Intimidate, Snarl, all that stuff just don't work. And so now what we're seeing is if the physical attacker would be beaten by Intimidate, it usually just plays Clear Amulet. Because having that ability to just ignore stat drops on your Pokemon that can set up is huge. Imagine like being able to just set up a Sword Stance and not have to worry about losing those boosts outside of Haze or Clear Smog. Those are both very niche scenarios where you can kind of play around that because you know what Pokemon have that. Whereas people just swapping Intimidate is a much easier thing to accomplish on teams. And so these Clear Amulet Pokemon kind of get to rule the roost for a while until we get ways figured out to kind of beat this stuff. And the Intimidators, unfortunately, are just going to have to be put on the shelves until we can figure out how to better utilize them. Speaking of better utilizing, there's more than one way to use these guys in terms of VGC. I picked Gyarados and Salamence here as examples because they both happen to get Moxie as their hidden ability and can both really deal some damage and start the snowball. On top of that, both carry Clear Amulet very, very well. That's kind of the gimmick here, is the Intimidators now become the Intimidate fodder because you're going to be carrying Clear Amulet and Moxie, and you're going to be setting up maybe a Dragon Dance, probably just one, and then trying to sweep through teams. And that's what's really cool about this, is you're no longer reliant on having to be Intimidate, and you can just play these guys as a Garchomp if your team really needs a Dragon Flying type or a Water Flying type. Arcanine, on the other hand, kind of has to really reimagine what it's doing. Outside of justified beat-up strats, you don't really have a good way of just becoming this offensive powerhouse. And so what I've been seeing and hearing about from people doing is you swap to Flash Fire and go Terra Grass or Terra Steel or something that is weak to fire, but you don't really care about any of your other weaknesses. Grass here in particular is a very good one. You become immune to Spore, Rage Powder, all that stuff because you're a grass type. 2, you have a weakness to Ice, which is not good if you have for your opponent carrying like Heat Wave or Flamethrower or Flare Blitz. You have a weakness to Flying, which is very mitigatable in my opinion. Flying is not a very good strong coverage move right now. Since you have Flash Fire, your weakness to Fire is gone. And if they hit you with a Fire type attack, you get to boost your now Fire type attacks by 1.5. And overall, this makes you a very bulky support Pokemon, still able to do the Snarl Will-O-Wisp stuff, but now you carry Heat Wave. Now you carry Helping Hand. Now you get to be a support Pokemon that can deal damage instead of this Intimidate Mon kind of pigeonholed into being a fast Snarl because you're pivoting in and out a ton. And it'll be interesting to see how the format develops if Arcanine can adapt to this meta and become a very good Pokemon because of its Flash Fire ability and really cool move pool. But I imagine we'll start to see more special attackers still. We'll start to see more Clear Amulet users. I feel like Intimidate's time of ruling VGC is over. Sorry, Incineroar. Knock the crown off. You're done. It's the special attackers and Clear Amulet's time to shine. And that's all I got this week. And talking about this, like why things don't work anymore, is always interesting to me because there's so many little things that happen over the course of a year, 2 years. multiple games that led to this whole Intimidate just not being as good as it was. I think it's great for the format that Intimidate's not good. Intimidate has ruled formats for a very long time, and now that we have ways to kind of get around it and mitigate it, teams are going to be a little bit more diverse. You don't have to really pigeonhole and force yourself into, I have to be aware that Intimidate beats my team. Well, now I can just play physical attackers all I want because I can play Clear Amulet, or I can play Inner Focus or Oblivious or whatever. If you like the video, make sure to do all that fun YouTube stuff for us, like, comment down below your favorite Intimidator or whatever, and make sure to hit that subscribe button, and we will see you all later in the week for a podcast episode. Bye, everyone.